The Senate will come to order. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, I impose the call of the Senate.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that Sergeant-at-Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, will you be so kind as to stand? In our tradition, we start with prayer, and prayer by the chaplain today is Rabbi Esther Adler from Mount Zion Temple in St. Paul. And following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Good morning. In a first-century text called Pirkei Avot, the great sage Hillel asks 3 questions that continue to guide us. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? These ancient words remind us that a healthy society requires both self and other, stepping up and stepping back, each of us bringing our voice, our conscience, and our best effort to the work before us. And we're also called to remember that our lives are bound together and that our choices affect others we may never meet. Hillel's great-grandson, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, taught, on 3 things the world stands: on justice, on truth, and on peace. Quoting the prophet Zechariah, execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. As this body gathers to begin your work today, may you be blessed with the courage to care for the communities and values that you're called to represent. May you be granted the wisdom to remember that your work must always serve the greater good, and with the urgency to do the good that is before you today, so that your efforts keep our state grounded in justice, in truth, and in peace. May the source of all bless this chamber and all who serve here. Amen.
The secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Clark, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hochschild, Herr, Heinzmann, Hemmingson-Jaeger, Hoffman, Holmstrom, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson-Stewart, Klein, Karan, Kroon, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, McQuaid, McEwen, Miller, Mohammed, Murphy, Nelson, Verbaten, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Members, a quorum is present. The following members intend to vote from a remote location pursuant to Rule 40.7. Senator Carlson and Senator Fateh. Members, if you'd like to follow along, I'm reading from today's Senate agenda dated Thursday, March 5th, 2025. we'll begin at the fifth order of business, which is reports of committees. There's a report to read at the desk. The secretary will read the report.
Senator Marty from the Committee on Finance, to which was re-referred Senate File Number 3596, a bill for an act relating to taxation, reports the same back with a recommendation that the bill be amended as follows, and when so amended, the bill do pass.
Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt the committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee reports printed in the agenda and read by the secretary be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now proceed to the sixth order of business, which is the second reading of Senate bills. The secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate File Numbers 3887 and 3596.
The Senate files have been given their second reading. Members, we will now proceed to the eighth order of business. That is the introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed as on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated with no changes. Members, we're moving to the ninth order of business, which is motions and resolutions. We will adopt the author's motions as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. I'll now call on individual senators. I will now recognize Senator Bowden for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 3613 be withdrawn from the Committee on Elections and re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government. This is my bill, and I've spoken with both chairs who are in agreement.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. I am now recognizing Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the appointment of the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and placed on the confirmation calendar.
Thank you. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Wickland yield for a question?
Senator Wickland, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Wickland. Senator Wickland, as you probably know, the Committee on Health and Human Services has recently received the appointment of the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services. Commissioner Gandhi has served in a temporary role since February 3rd of 2025 and wanted to inquire, Mr. President and Senator Wickland, when you plan on holding a confirmation hearing on Commissioner Gandhi's appointment.
Senator Wickland, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just receiving that knowledge from you today that the appointment has reached our committee, and I have not given thought to the exact scheduling, but we'll consider it.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Wickland continue to yield?
Senator Wickland, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Wickland. Minnesotans are very concerned and outraged about the fraud crisis that our state is facing. And unfortunately, we have leadership at the Department of Human Services that has failed to recognize this problem and, in fact, fails to admit that there's a problem. If you go to the website for the Department of Human Services right now, they will say that Minnesota is leading the nation in fraud detection and that they have no problems that other states don't face. I think Minnesotans know that there's a major fraud crisis in Minnesota when they've seen career prosecutors identify billions of dollars that have gone to criminals. And so, Mr. President and Senator Wickland, wanted to ask if you would commit to the body, commit to the people of Minnesota to holding a confirmation hearing on Governor Walz's appointment to lead the Department of Human Services within the next week.
Senator Wickland, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will commit to you that a hearing will be held. I do not know if I can commit to a hearing within a week. We have a lot of things to take care of in our committee, but definitely commit to holding a hearing.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a timely matter. We have had here under Senate Democrats majority here in this body. They did not bring Senator or Commissioner Harpstead's confirmation here to the floor. We have had this temporary status for more than a year leading the Department of Human Services. And I believe, given this fraud crisis that Minnesota is facing, we should have a confirmation hearing as soon as possible. We should have a commitment to this body so that we know that we can have a conversation on the direction of leadership within the Department of Human Services. And so, Mr. President, without that commitment, I would recommend that members vote to bring this to the body so that we can debate the leadership at Department of Human Services.
Any other discussion? Senator Kroon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Senator Rasmussen's motion. Senate confirmation is a basic checks and balances on our government. That is the duty of the Senate in particular, and it is a duty that this body has refused to exercise for too long. We have about half of our agency commissioners that are operating right now without Senate confirmation. This is good government. The checks and balances, the Senate confirmation is the people's voice for who is going to be running these important agencies in the executive branch. And we should not absolve ourselves from that responsibility. We should have committee hearings as soon as possible on all of these commissioner hearings, but particularly this one, particularly for the Department of Human Services. We're in the middle of the biggest social services fraud scandal in American history, and we do not even have a confirmed commissioner for the Department of Human Services. That reflects very poorly on this institution, and Senate Democrats should step up and exercise our authority, our confirmation authority, to have transparency and accountability and to allow the people's voice to have a say in who's running the Department of Human Services. So I stand strongly in support of Senator Rasmussen's motion. Thank you.
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Rasmussen. I'll be a no on this motion. Members, one of the things we can do to help make things happen here is to talk to each other and to understand the process. Senator Rasmussen, I spoke with Senator Wiklund. I understand you have not attempted to speak to her about this issue. It's better for us as a body to talk to each other, to work together, to see if it can be figured out. Senator Kroon, I heard you say the largest fraud in history. It's not even the biggest news this last 2 weeks, as we had a $14 billion multi-state fraud reported. And while that may fall more on the federal government, and while we're not here to talk about H.R. 1 and other issues, I would just say, let's have some perspective, members. The reason that we named Senator Wiklund the chair is that the majority of members felt that she was the best one to make decisions about when confirmation hearings would be held. And it is her prerogative and her prerogative until she's not the chair any longer. With that, members, I will be a no vote on the Rasmussen motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Senator Lucero first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the Rasmussen motion to have this confirmation before this body. I just listened to Senator Wiklund say there's a lot of business to be done, a lot of important business to be done, and she would not commit to having a confirmation hearing in the committee in the next week. Members, there is no greater business that's of a higher importance right now. We are in the midst of a fraud crisis. Billions upon billions of dollars are flowing out of state government directly into the hands and pockets of criminals. And to have this be the highest priority is what Minnesotans want. That is the voice that I've been hearing across my community and across this state. People are demanding accountability. They are demanding this be the top priority. And so, Mr. President, Democrats, it's very clear, are not making serious efforts to stopping fraud as the highest priority. Republicans are doing that, and we will continue to fight for Minnesotans to stop the fraud crisis in Minnesota. Thank you.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I rise in support of Senator Rasmussen's motion. You know, members, I'm on the HS committee, and we've been told that the federal government is withholding right now over $500 million a quarter. So that's over $2 billion a year because of the fraud problems we have down here. There's 14 different areas or agencies within DHS that are suspect. I don't have the whole list in front of me, but this particular position really needs to have someone who's going to look into this. Now, when I look at the person who's been nominated for commissioner, she was an assistant commissioner. She was in the managerial structure since, I think, 2022. There's also some reports that she was one of the ones who was threatening and persecuting whistleblowers that were coming forward saying there was fraud in the DHS programs. And these were employees, and some of them have come forward and testified publicly, nationally, and here in the state of Minnesota. I have talked with some of the fraud committee members over in the House. So members, we've got to have somebody who's squeaky clean and willing to really look at the fraud situation. Because this, $500 million, we want it to get to the people who really need it, rather than, going overseas and allegedly funding terrorists or buying Lamborghinis or whatever the allegations are. So, members, this is a vitally important one. Again, it's 14 different areas in DHS that need to be looked at, and we got to have somebody who's been free from this, not a part of it, in my opinion. So please vote yes on the Rasmussen motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, members. I want to remind you that the motion by Senator Rasmussen is that he moves that the appointment of the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and placed on the confirmation calendar. That's the narrow motion. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, I rise in support of the Rasmussen motion and the urgency to get this confirmation on the calendar and in front of the Senate. The Democrat chair just told us they have been sitting on this for over a year. And when asked, when do you think you're going to bring this up? Have you thought about it? Her answer was, I really haven't thought about it. Well, we're 3 weeks into session, 3 weeks from deadlines, and she hasn't thought about it, and she won't commit to having this within the next week. And the department that's got the most fraud in history happening right here in Minnesota, covered up by Governor Walz and the Democrats. And there's no urgency. Folks, the House is on fire. It is time to take care of the issue at hand, which is the fraud. And the chair's answer to Senator Rasmussen when asked, would you commit in the next week? She says, we've got lots of other issues. I don't know if I can commit in the next week. Folks, when the House is on fire, there's a lot of issues, but no issue more important than putting the fire out. You don't need to worry about the drapes. You don't need to worry about restocking the refrigerator. You don't need to worry about getting the dishes done because the house is on fire. You put the fire out first. So, folks, the public, I hope you see what's going on here in the state legislature and in the Senate. The Democrats, along with Governor Walz, continue this cover-up. Republicans are trying to push this forward. It is time to address this issue. And we hear from the Democrats, we can't commit to this. It's been over a year. We haven't thought about it. We got lots of other important issues. It tells you how important fixing the fraud is in Minnesota to the Democrats. Why would they be so dismissive of addressing this important issue? The House is on fire. Let's take care of the biggest issue in front of us, which is the fraud in the billions. And let's quit being aloof like the Democrats want us to be. And Governor Walz showed it yesterday how aloof he was out in Washington, answering and ducking every question he could. We're seeing the Democrats do the same thing here today. Vote yes on the Rasmussen motion. Let's make this urgency urgent.
Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a concern about the previous speaker. His implication that somehow I've had the information and have not acted on it is incorrect. This matter of the appointment of the Department of Human Services Commissioner was transmitted to my committee yesterday. So today I'm seeing it. I will definitely evaluate that new information I have. It has nothing to do with any past weeks of ignoring this. So I really want to make sure that people are aware that I'm receiving the information today and I will take action.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I've been a member of this body now for over 3 years. And in that time, we have done 0 commissioner appointment approvals. None. We haven't evaluated a single commissioner, not one. Is there not any interest amongst the Democrats in bringing forward people to evaluate their performance within these agencies? The multi-billions of dollars, that was $72 billion state budget, and then all of the federal money that we control and pour out of this place on top of that. We should be evaluating these commissioners each and every opportunity we get. The people of Minnesota, members, expect us to commit to the oversight function with which we are given within our state constitution and our state laws. But we're doing none of it. We've done none of it in 3 years. And now we hear that it seems to be a surprise that people in Minnesota, at a time when we have the nation-leading amount of fraud coming out of this state, out of the state of Minnesota, Mr. President, the largest public benefit fraud in the history of the state of Minnesota isn't in New York, it's not in California, it's here in Minnesota. Now is the time. The House is on fire, Senator Westrom. And this is the most important thing before us today. This is the most important thing before us all week. We have, Mr. President, a Department of Human Services that has embedded in it an office of an inspector general. While $9 billion of fraud is projected by many to be happening here in this state, mostly amongst our Department of Human Services, $9 billion, we have an office of the inspector general that has 500 employees, 60 of which are investigators. What we have heard from them, members, is this: crickets. Crickets from the Minnesota Department of Human Services in their job that we give them. We're paying 500 people. The taxpayers of Minnesota are paying 500 people to oversee what's going on in this department. We have 90 people who have been convicted in this state in a variety of areas of fraud. None of them have come from the Department of Human Services Office of Inspector General. This is the federal government bringing forward these convictions, these indictments, and there's more to be coming. I understand, Mr. President, the federal government is coming in to help the citizens of Minnesota do the oversight that the Democrats here within our government refuse to do. The people of Minnesota, are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching what your government is doing? They are refusing to do the oversight that you and your Constitution have told them to do. Now's the time. We haven't done any of these in the last 3 years. The House is on fire, and they want to pretend it's not. The delusional world that radical Democrats in this state live in is front and center before you now. Please help us hold them accountable if they won't indeed do the function that we expect of them. Mr. President, we need oversight. The time is now. Let's support Senator Rasmussen's motion and start to have some oversight in this state to prevent what's going on here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. President and members, and I appreciate the spirited conversation and Senator Drazkowski's appeal to the people of Minnesota who are watching, who also probably have an interconnection and can fact-check what we've been hearing for the last 15 minutes. And one fact that I think is fairly important to note is that we have confirmed at least 8 commissioners over the last couple of years, including for agriculture, deed, higher ed. We've been doing that work. And I think the expectation of Minnesotans is that we tell the truth here and we say what we know and we stand behind it. So I encourage Minnesotans who are watching at home to fact check the conversation that we're having right now.
Senator Liskey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise in favor of Senator Rasmussen's motion, mostly because we've spent a significant amount of time in Health and Human Services Committee listening to what the federal government has been up to, and unfortunately, a lot of times the things that we're hearing, we can't actually change as a state senate. And so our job is actually to focus on the state legislature and what we can do. And so our response should be related to things that we can do, and this is something we can do. We can affect how the DHS is operated, and unfortunately, under the current leadership of the DHS, we are faced with decisions that are costing Minnesotans those benefits that we hear about. They're costing Minnesotans money financially, and it is taking a major toll on the rest of the state of Minnesota. And so with that, I support the motion that Senator Rasmussen is offering, and I look forward to a green vote from the rest of you.
Senator Holmstrom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise in support of the Rasmussen motion simply because if there was ever a time for us to be concerned about oversight, it would be from an agency that just fabricated records when our OLA went and did the research for the people. They were willing to lie to us. They were willing to fabricate records, and that is concerning. And the fact that there is an aloofness, a lack of concern on the other side, as a taxpayer, as a member of this body, is very disappointing to me. I just heard a member say that we've been doing this work. Well, then I ask you to rise with us. Let's do this work one more time when it's most important to the Minnesota people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Rasmussen, for bringing this up. I had the chance to run down to my district yesterday because transportation was canceled, so I went down to get a few errands done, went to a couple different places, went to the hardware store, was a couple other establishments, and the number one thing I hear is, what is going on? Are you guys taking care of the fraud issue? Over and over and over again. And this just isn't the first time. You hear it constantly. When we go back to our districts, it's what's going on with the fraud. How come you're taking our tax dollars and spending them unwisely? That's what we hear in our districts. We have to address the issue. I have another friend who vacations down in Arizona, and he was at an establishment the other day, and he said he's almost embarrassed to say where he's from because once he says where he's from, they keep saying, what is going on in Minnesota? We need to address this issue. Let's bring it forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. And I agree with much of what's been said, but sometimes in the spirit of debate and given the topic or the issues and how passionate we are, sometimes the subject we're discussing can seem or come off as more partisan than it is. And I just want to take a moment to help everybody realize why the conversation we're having is so important when it comes to confirmations. And what's interesting is you have a bunch of Republicans here in the state of Minnesota in the legislature fighting for the legislature to assert itself. And in Congress, you have a bunch of Democrats doing the same. It shows that's not a partisan issue. It's really an issue as it relates to our government, how it is supposed to function. Why are we supposed to have hearings regarding commissioners, and why are we supposed to have confirmations here in the legislature? Well, it's plain and simple. It is a check on the executive branch. It is a means in which by the legislature, no matter who controls it, whether they be Republican or Democrat, in the spirit of how our democracy is supposed to operate, it's why we do these things, for transparency, so that whatever the issue, whether it be fraud, whether it be you name it, the people are well served when you have one branch of government providing oversight and checking the other, shining transparency on issues, and holding folks accountable. And when you try to shortchange that system, when you try to sidestep that important check on the balance of our government, whether it be in the state of Minnesota or in our country in general, it leads to the sort of issues we're experiencing today and the sort of issues that have Minnesotans fired up and fed up, especially when it comes to billions of dollars in fraud, Mr. President. So what I want everybody to know and understand is this is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an extremely important and vital issue to the people of Minnesota. And the only way we fix it, is no matter the party, we do our constitutional duty. We support Senator Rasmussen's motion, and we stop shortchanging these hearings and confirmations, and we actually do our jobs, which is no matter how painful they may be, we do them because that's the job and that's what the people deserve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Members, anyone else before I go to the author of the motion, because he's going to be the last person that we hear from before we vote? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, President Champion and members. I'm grateful to hear the perspective of so many of us, but I do want to call our attention to the Chair of Health and Human Services. She's already shared with us that she just received the message about the new commissioner and the request or the need for a hearing on confirmation. And if we think about the Chair Wickland, we know that she is calm, thoughtful, she's comprehensive, and she is full of integrity. She's already told this body that she will conduct a hearing. And I'm thinking a lot about what Senator Duckworth just shared with us and the urgency that I'm hearing from the members in this chamber and why I'm going to urge everyone to vote no on the Rasmussen motion. If we're going to do the work of the people and have a meaningful interchange and do the oversight necessary, this confirmation must be considered in committee, where members representing the different parts of this state have the opportunity to ask questions and inquire and understand the role of the commissioner, what this person brings to the role, and to answer some of the questions that have been raised here. If what we were to do is shortchange that process, frankly, we would bring a confirmation to the calendar and perhaps to the floor and have a debate just like we're having now. Minnesotans deserve the oversight and the inquiry that comes from the members, Democrats and Republicans, who serve on the committee. I think one of the things I've been most frustrated with in Washington, D.C. is a president who has essentially hushed the voices of Congress. And this motion essentially does the same. Let's not do that. If we're serious, if we are serious about following through on a confirmation, as I hear members saying they are, then it belongs in the committee first, not on the floor. So I would ask members respectfully and with integrity to vote no on the Rasmussen motion. Thank you.
Finally, Senator Rasmussen, and then we'll vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minnesotans are demanding accountability for the billions of their hard-earned tax dollars who have gone to criminals. These were dollars that were supposed to go to kids with autism, supposed to go to hungry kids during COVID, supposed to go take care of some of the most vulnerable Minnesotans amongst us. The Senate not only has the power, but has the duty to review confirmations and to conduct oversight. Unfortunately, for the agency that has been responsible for most of the fraud in this fraud crisis, the Minnesota Department of Human Services, Governor Walz has avoided the confirmation process by having a temporary commissioner for more than a year. And now, Mr. President, when we have received an official confirmation or an official appointment from Governor Walz, we cannot get a commitment from Senate Democrats on when they will have a hearing, when they will conduct oversight, when the questions that Minnesotans are asking, how did this fraud crisis happen? What are we doing to stop it? What are we doing to protect taxpayers? What are we doing to protect the most vulnerable? And so if Senate Democrats can't make a commitment on when they're going to have that hearing, we need to have that hearing here on the floor to make sure that Minnesotans' questions and concerns can be expressed. One of my biggest disappointments with the leadership at the Department of Human Services today is that they can't recognize the problem they're facing. Joe Biden's appointee to be the U.S. Attorney here in Minnesota, Andy Lugar, said years ago that Minnesota has a fraud problem. Yet the leadership at the Department of Human Services refuses to acknowledge the fraud problem, and they think they deserve a gold star. If you go to their website, they will say they're the best at fraud detection. They're leading the nation in their efforts. But Minnesotans know the truth. We've seen news story after news story of high-profile fraud cases that should have easily been caught, but instead, years went by, billions were stolen, and Minnesotans are getting hurt. I would ask, Mr. President, for my colleagues to support this motion, to move forward with the accountability that Minnesotans are demanding, and to do our job as a Minnesota Senate.
The Secretary will take the roll on the Rasmussen motion. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Heinzman votes aye.
Senator Heisman votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Curran votes aye.
Senator Curran votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lang votes aye.
And Senator Lang votes aye. Senator Hochschild.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Fate votes no.
Senator Fate votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
And Senator Carlson votes no. Members, we're just waiting for some others to come to the floor. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 35 noes, the Rasmussen motion is not adopted. Members, we will now move to the 13th order of business.
Mr. President?
Senator Westrom, we're on the 13th order of business.
Mr. President, on the last vote, I was green when I checked, and somehow it changed to red. I don't know how that happened, but I would like to make sure the record shows that I was green.
Senator Westrom will only be able to do that by entertaining a motion to reconsider, and if the motion to reconsider passes, then we obviously will reconsider the vote. But I don't know what happened with your system. It appears that the system is working okay, but we'll be happy to do what we need to do. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, in that order, I would move to reconsider the vote on the last motion, if it would be so. If that would be a proper motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Where are you finished?
If that'd be a proper motion, I'd make that right now, Mr. President.
Senator Westrom moves, puts forth a motion to reconsider. Any discussion on that motion? Senator? To reconsider the Rasmussen motion. Senator Friends?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Pratt?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I urge members to vote in favor of the Western motion. This comes up periodically. This is a courtesy that we extend members routinely, and this should be a non-controversial vote. Thank you.
Having voted on the prevailing side, Senator Westrom moved that the vote hereby the Rasmussen motion, and that motion failed on the Senate floor. He's asking for it to be reconsidered. And now we will take the roll on the Westrom reconsideration motion.
Mr. President.
Senator Jasinski.
Senator Heinzman votes aye.
Senator Heisman votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Senator Coran votes aye.
Senator Coran votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There have been 64 ayes and 0 nays. The motion to reconsider is adopted. We are now before us is the Rasmussen motion. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, no further extending of the debate. I appreciate members doing that. I literally had checked with my seatmate to confirm my vote was green. I don't know how it switched, but I appreciate the procedure and urge members to revote this motion.
Senator Friends.
Mr. President, I did not ask to speak. If we have the motion to reconsider granted, then I would ask for a roll call on the following vote.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. The secretary will take the roll. We just need to show it properly on the board. They have now made the switch. Are we all clear? We're on the Rasmussen motion. Here we go. The secretary will take the roll on the Rasmussen motion. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lang votes aye.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Heisman votes aye.
Senator Heisman votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Curran votes aye.
And Senator Curran votes aye. Senator Hochschild.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Fateh votes no.
Senator Fateh votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
And Senator Carlson votes no. All members having voted who desires a vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 32 ayes and 34 noes, the Rasmussen motion is not adopted. We are now moved to the 13th order of business. Again, that is Senate interest. Any announcements? Any announcements of Senate interest? Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session. Abler. Any announcements? Seeing none, I will now go to Senator Murphy for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Monday, March 9th at 11.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now adjourned.